I was halfway through cleaning out the garage when I found it, an old external hard drive, dusty and forgotten in a box marked Christmas lights and crap. It wasn't labeled, just black plastic with a short USB cable wrapped around it, tossed in with a bunch of broken ornaments and tangled extension cords. I wouldn't have given it a second thought if I hadn't needed a break from the mess, and if Megan hadn't been out of the house. She said she was meeting her sister for brunch, and I believed her. I always did. She kissed me goodbye like usual, said, "Don't spend all day out there, it's just a garage," and I laughed and told her I was planning to burn the whole thing down and start over. It was one of those light exchanges, the kind that fills a marriage after almost a decade, not intense, not special, just routine. Safe. I plugged the hard drive into my laptop in the kitchen while the kids were upstairs playing video games. I didn't expect anything interesting. Probably old photos or outdated work files from years ago. But as soon as the folders loaded, I noticed one that didn't fit. It was buried under a generic name, docs_2019, but when I opened it, there were no spreadsheets or PDFs, just one single video file, named MOV_1123. It was large, almost a gigabyte, and dated back about 4 months. That alone made me pause. I clicked on it without thinking much, expecting maybe a birthday video or some forgotten recording of the kids being silly. What I saw instead nearly made me throw up. At first, the camera was tilted awkwardly, like it had been propped up on a desk or a shelf. There was some shuffling, a hand reaching to adjust the angle, and then Megan walked into the frame. She looked good, really good. Dressed in that way she only did when she went out without me, the kind of outfit she used to save for our anniversary dinners before they became just another Wednesday night at Olive Garden. I couldn't make sense of what I was watching, not at first. Then a man walked into the frame. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't someone from our circle, not a neighbor, not a family friend. He looked younger. Maybe early 30s, clean-cut, confident in the way guys get when they think they've won something they weren't supposed to have. They didn't say much. Just murmurs, indistinct sounds, and then they were kissing, like they'd done it 100 times. Not awkward, not tentative. Like it was familiar. Like it was theirs. I paused the video and sat back in my chair. My throat was dry, my hands shaking slightly above the keyboard. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move. It was like my body needed time to catch up to my brain. I unpaused it. I had to know if it was real. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was old, before we met. Maybe she was helping someone with an audition. Maybe she'd explain it. But the video went on. Their clothes came off. The camera didn't move. It had been set up deliberately, like this was something they wanted to remember. Something they wanted to watch later. There were no doubts now. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. When it ended, I just sat there for another minute, staring at the screen. The video player minimized automatically, and the cheerful desktop wallpaper of our family at the lake popped back up. Me, Megan, and the kids, all smiles, all lies. The time in the corner read 12:41 p.m. She'd just texted me 20 minutes ago saying she'd be back soon and to check if the garage door opener was still making that weird noise. I didn't respond. I copied the video to a new folder, encrypted it, and renamed it something only I'd recognize. Then I ejected the drive, wiped it clean, and placed it right back in the box where I'd found it. I sat at the table, laptop closed, staring at the sink, listening to the muffled sounds of Mario Kart from upstairs. When Megan came back around 1, I was still sitting there. She dropped her purse by the door, stretched her arms like she'd had a relaxing morning, and smiled. "Find anything useful in there?" she asked, nodding toward the garage. I smiled back. "Yeah," I said. "You could say that." The rest of that afternoon felt like I was watching someone else live my life. I went through the motions because I didn't know what else to do. I helped the kids make their Lego tower, even though my hands felt stiff and disconnected from my body. I listened to Megan talk about how her sister ordered avocado toast again, and how the waiter forgot her orange juice, and how they ended up laughing about it. She spoke quickly, filling the room with stories I couldn't process. She sat across from me on the couch, her legs tucked underneath her, the same way she always sat. Her foot kept brushing against my thigh like nothing had changed. And for a moment, I wondered if it was always this easy for her. Was this how she came home that day after filming herself with him? Did she talk about groceries and Netflix while the taste of someone else was still on her lips? Later that evening, after the kids were in bed, Megan asked if I wanted to watch something. She had already opened the streaming app and was scrolling through shows, not waiting for my answer. I told her I was tired and needed to get some work done. She nodded without looking at me, probably relieved. I went upstairs and sat at my desk, the same place I'd been during so many normal nights, where I used to design logos and fix broken code while she lay in bed watching cooking competitions and texting people I assumed were coworkers or her sister. That night, I opened a blank document and stared at it for half an hour. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she dozed off quickly, like she always did. Her breathing slowed, steady, unbothered. I turned away from her and faced the wall, my thoughts clawing at each other, trying to line up, trying to tell me what to do next. I knew I couldn't keep it to myself for long, but I also knew I couldn't confront her without being prepared. I didn't want a conversation. I wanted answers that couldn't be dodged. I wanted to see her face when she realized I wasn't guessing. I was done guessing. The next morning was a weekend, so there was no alarm. Megan woke up around 8, rolled toward me, and rested her head on my chest. I felt her warmth, but it made my skin crawl. She hadn't done this in months. It used to be routine, but lately she'd started her mornings by scrolling through her phone and staying quiet for 20 minutes before speaking to anyone. Now, she was acting like things were fine, like we were still okay. "You've been quiet," she said without lifting her head. "I'm just thinking," I replied. "About what?" "Stuff," I said, keeping it vague. She didn't press. Instead, she got up, stretched, and walked to the bathroom. I heard her humming in the shower, completely at ease, and that was when I made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her walk around like she hadn't shattered everything. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure how deep it went. I needed a time, a location, a reason. I needed to see how long she'd been lying right to my face. After breakfast, I told her I had to run a quick errand. I left the house, drove a few blocks, then circled back and parked down the street. I waited for a while, just watching. Nothing happened. She stayed home, played in the backyard with the kids, laughed loudly when our son threw a ball too hard, and it bounced off the fence. She looked like the person I married. But I knew she wasn't. 2 days later, I found something else. This time, I wasn't lucky. I searched. I started checking things she wouldn't expect me to look at. Megan always kept a folder of home videos and photos on our shared desktop, mostly things from family trips or school events. Hidden inside that folder, behind a wall of subfolders, I found one called Archive 2021. Buried in that was a zip file with a bland name, something like final_rec_edit. When I opened it, there were 7 videos. I didn't watch them all. I couldn't. The second one confirmed it wasn't a one-time thing. It was the same room, different day. Same man. Same setup. She smiled at the camera. She was comfortable. She was enjoying it. And worst of all, she looked happy. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just watching her cheat on me. I was watching the version of her I never got to see. The one she gave to someone else. I copied everything again. Backed it up twice. I made a folder of my own. I wasn't going to confront her until I had every piece. Until I knew everything she did, every lie she told, every time she chose someone else over me. She came into my office later that evening, leaned against the doorframe, and asked if I was okay. I nodded. She tilted her head. "You sure? You look tired." "Just work," I said. "You've been off lately. Something bothering you?" I paused, looked her in the eye, and gave her the most honest answer I could without saying anything. "Not yet," I said. "But I think something's coming." I waited another week before I said anything. I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want tears. I didn't want apologies rehearsed in front of a mirror. I wanted her to feel as unprepared as I had been when I clicked play. That entire week, I pretended. I laughed when I had to, acted distracted when she looked concerned, played with the kids, paid the bills, answered emails, did all the usual things. She didn't ask again if something was wrong. Maybe she thought I had gotten over whatever was bothering me. Maybe she had already started forgetting the man from the video, folding him back into whatever dark part of her mind she kept her secrets in. But I hadn't forgotten a single second. The way she kissed him. The way she looked at him afterward. I played that part over and over in my head, and every time, it burned a little more. The confrontation happened on a Saturday. I didn't plan it down to the minute, but I had already picked the day. I waited until after lunch. The kids were at my sister's place for the afternoon. Megan was in the living room, scrolling on her tablet, wearing one of my old hoodies. I stood in the doorway and watched her for a second. She looked peaceful, bored, even. When she finally noticed me, she smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hey," she said. "You okay?" "Yeah," I replied, then added, "Can you pause that for a minute?" She blinked. Sure. She set the tablet down and turned to face me. What's up? I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer me directly. No stories, no explanations. Just the truth. Her posture changed immediately. She leaned forward slightly, shoulders tight, her eyes narrowing just a little. All right. What is it? Who is he? I asked. She didn't react the way I thought she would. No sharp intake of breath. No gasp. No sudden denial. She just sat there for a second too long, then said, Who? The guy from the videos, I said. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Then she stood up, slowly, like she thought standing would somehow give her more control of the conversation. What videos? I found the drive in the garage, I said. You saved the files in a folder you thought I'd never look in. I saw everything. Her face went pale, and her hands started to shake slightly. She crossed her arms, then uncrossed them, like she couldn't figure out what to do with her body. That was months ago, she said, and the way she said it made it worse. So it happened more than once. Megan looked away, rubbing her forehead. It wasn't serious. You filmed it. She didn't answer. You brought him into our house. Her voice cracked. It wasn't like that. You were smiling. You looked happy. You kissed him like you missed him. That's not nothing. I didn't mean for it to get that far, she said quickly. It just happened. We were talking, and one day it went further than I expected. I ended it a long time ago. Before or after you started saving the videos? She didn't reply. I stepped closer. Tell me his name. Does it matter? Tell me. His name is Kyle, she said. He was someone I met through a friend. We had a few drinks and I don't need the details of how it started. I need to know why. She looked at me for a long moment. Because I felt invisible. That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was a shock, but because I could feel the weight in those words. Still, it didn't make what she did any less real. I never stopped showing up, I said. I never turned my back on this family. I didn't disappear. You didn't even talk to me. I didn't know how, she said, eyes wet now. I didn't plan it. It wasn't about love. I just needed something different. Something that wasn't routine. So cheating was easier than a conversation? I made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Then you recorded it. More than once. She sat back down slowly, covering her face with her hands. I didn't think you'd ever find it. No, you didn't. Because you thought I was too stupid to notice. Too trusting. That's not fair, she said, pulling her hands away. Fair? You want to talk about fair now? She stared at the floor, silent. Her breathing was uneven. I could see her trying to come up with something to say that wouldn't make things worse. But there was nothing. The silence between us stretched so wide, it felt like we were in different rooms. I need you to leave for a few days, I said finally. She looked up, stunned. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. A hotel. Your sister's. Anywhere that's not here. You're kicking me out? I'm asking for space. If you care at all about what's left of this marriage, you'll give it to me. She didn't argue. She packed a small bag that evening and left without saying goodbye. I didn't watch her walk out the door. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall, listening to the sound of her keys and the soft click of the lock turning. Then I sat there alone in silence. The night she left, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I sat in the living room with the lights off, just listening to the house, trying to remember what it used to sound like before everything changed. Every creak in the walls felt louder. Every little noise stood out. The fridge made that humming sound it always did, and the heater kicked on around midnight. I started to wonder how many nights I'd sat in this same room, completely unaware that the woman upstairs was carrying on a second life behind closed doors. Every thought led to another question, and none of the answers gave me anything useful. I didn't feel like a husband anymore. I didn't feel like a father, a provider, a partner. I felt like a fool who'd been too comfortable to notice his life slipping away one quiet evening at a time. The next morning, I dropped the kids off at school like usual. They didn't ask about their mom, and I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't know what I was supposed to say yet. Maybe she'd come back. Maybe I'd let her. Maybe I wouldn't. When I got home, I opened the laptop, pulled up the folder, and stared at the files again. Not to watch them. I had no interest in putting myself through that again, but to remind myself of the reality. I needed to keep it in my head, not let my mind start rewriting it into something softer, more forgivable. Because it wasn't forgivable. Not yet. Around noon, I called the locksmith. I told them I wanted the locks changed that day. No exceptions. They said someone could be there by 3. I agreed. While I waited, I started collecting things. Her clothes, her books, her shoes by the door, all of it. I packed it neatly in bins and lined them up in the garage. I didn't throw anything out. I wasn't looking for chaos. I just wanted her absence to be visible. I wanted it to be clear that things weren't going to reset just because a few days had passed. When the locksmith showed up, I didn't say much. He asked if it was a recent breakup. I nodded. He said he sees it a lot. I didn't respond. He finished the job in under half an hour, handed me the new keys, and left without trying to make small talk again. That night, I sent her a message. Just one sentence. You can pick up your things from the garage. The door code is still the same. She replied a few minutes later. Can we talk? Not tonight, I typed, and that was it. The next afternoon, her car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the upstairs window as she opened the garage, stood there looking at the bins for a minute, then started loading them into her trunk one by one. She didn't knock on the door. She didn't try to come in. She just packed up and left. I stood there the whole time, making sure I didn't flinch or hesitate. After she drove off, I stayed upstairs until the garage door rolled shut behind her. That weekend, I met with a lawyer. It was the first time I'd said any of it out loud to someone who didn't know us personally. He was calm, professional, and didn't flinch when I explained everything. I gave him a flash drive with the videos and the messages I had pulled from her old backups. He said it would help. He told me that depending on the laws in our state, I might be able to argue for full custody and favorable division of assets. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted control over what happened next. I didn't trust her to make choices that wouldn't hurt the kids again. That night, she called. I let it ring once, then answered. I thought you didn't want to talk, she said, her voice low, like she was trying not to cry. I'm listening now, I said. Say what you need to say. I miss them, she said. I miss you. I know you don't believe me, but I didn't mean to hurt you like this. You filmed it. Multiple times. I know. And kept it. Labeled it. Saved it where it could be found. That wasn't an accident. I don't know why I did that. Maybe part of me wanted to be caught. Don't make this about you. I have to explain this to our kids. I have to figure out how to protect them from it. I'm not a monster. No, you're not. But you lied to me. And you lied to them by pretending everything was fine. Do you want a divorce? I'm preparing for that. Can we meet in person? Just to talk. Not yet. I hung up before she could answer. I needed space. She could say whatever she wanted, but I didn't trust a single word until I saw actions that proved she meant them. So far, all I'd seen was a person who'd gotten caught and didn't know what to do next. And I was starting to realize that maybe I didn't know what to do either. But I was going to figure it out without her. 2 weeks passed before we spoke again. During that time, everything around the house continued like clockwork, which somehow made it worse. The kids asked where she was a few times, and I told them she was staying with her sister for a little while. I didn't lie beyond that. I didn't say she'd be back, and I didn't promise anything. They accepted it without too many questions, though I could tell they felt the shift. Kids notice when something's off, even if they can't explain it. I kept the routine tight: school, meals, homework, bedtime, but under the surface, everything felt temporary, like a weird version of our life was playing out while the real one hovered in limbo, waiting for a decision I hadn't made yet. When Megan finally reached out again, she asked if we could talk at the park, where the kids wouldn't hear us. She said she wasn't coming to argue, that she just wanted one honest conversation. I said yes, but only because I needed something from her too. Closure, maybe. A final confirmation that this wasn't something we could fix, or worse, that it never had been real to begin with. We met on a Thursday afternoon. It was cold and cloudy, which fit the mood. She sat on a bench by the tennis courts, arms crossed tightly, not looking around. I parked and walked up slowly, giving her time to see me coming. She stood when I got there, but I didn't move to hug her, and she didn't try either. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. I figured it was time, I replied. She sat down first. I sat a few feet away from her. I've been trying to figure out how to talk to you without sounding like I'm making excuses, she said. Don't try to explain it away. Just say what's true. I didn't think I'd feel anything about it after you found out. I thought I'd feel guilt, obviously, but I thought I'd also feel relieved that maybe things could finally be honest between us. But the truth is, I don't know who I am without this family. I don't know what I was doing. That makes two of us, I said, because I still don't understand any of it. Not just the cheating, but how you went back to normal after. How you looked me in the eye. How you took care of our kids knowing what you were doing behind my back. I told myself it didn't count, she said, her voice cracking. I convinced myself that it was separate, that it wasn't personal. I know how that sounds, and it's disgusting, But that's how I kept doing it. It didn't feel real when I was with him. It felt like I was stepping out of my life and borrowing someone else's. And you kept a record of it. I don't know why I saved the videos. Maybe I wanted proof that I could be something else. That I wasn't just stuck in this routine. But I never meant for you to see them. I never meant to destroy everything. You didn't mean for me to find out, and that's the only part you regret. No, she said firmly. That's not true. I regret all of it. I regret meeting him. I regret every lie. I regret letting something so small snowball into something that shattered our life. But you did it anyway. Yes. We sat in silence for a long time after that. I watched a man teaching his daughter how to serve on the opposite court. She kept missing the ball entirely, but he didn't seem to mind. He just kept showing her the motion again and again. I'm not asking to come back, she said eventually. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. I just needed to say it. Out loud. To your face. I did something horrible, and I understand that I may have broken this beyond repair. You did, I said. But the damage doesn't stop with us. Our kids will feel this. Maybe not now, but later. And I'm the one who has to explain it all. I want to be part of that conversation when the time comes. I want them to know the truth. Not the full truth. Not yet. They don't need to know what I saw. They just need to know that you made a choice that ended our marriage. She nodded slowly. So what happens now? She asked. I've spoken to a lawyer. Papers are being drawn up. It's not final yet, but it will be. I'm asking for primary custody. I want them to live with me. I expected that. I'm not trying to keep them from you. You'll see them. But this is going to be structured. There's no room for improvising anymore. I understand. We stood at the same time. She looked like she wanted to hug me, but I stepped back before she could move. Goodbye, Megan. Goodbye, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I walked to my car without looking back. She stayed on the bench, still as stone. I didn't need to see her face to know she was crying. And for the first time since this all started, I didn't feel a single thing. Finalizing the divorce wasn't the hard part. Signing the paperwork, splitting the assets, agreeing on visitation schedules, it was all mechanical, like following a checklist. I didn't feel much during it. Maybe I had already processed the pain, or maybe I had just reached the point where the damage was so complete that the only thing left was to put up the walls and move forward. I didn't fight her on the financials, and to her credit, she didn't push for anything beyond what was fair. We kept the conversation civil, but there was no warmth in it. We sounded like coworkers settling a project that neither of us cared about anymore. The only thing that still mattered was the kids, and that was the one place I refused to be flexible on. I kept them with me. She got her weekends, her holidays, her phone calls, but I made it clear I wasn't letting her disrupt their lives any more than she already had. I told the kids the truth in pieces. I didn't give them the details. I didn't tell them about the videos, or what I found, or how I sat in silence for nights thinking about whether I could ever look at their mother the same way again. I just told them that their mom and I weren't going to live together anymore, and that sometimes people make choices that hurt the people they love. My daughter cried. My son asked if it was his fault. I told them it wasn't, and I meant it, but seeing the worry in their eyes reminded me of the cost of everything. Megan had been a good mom, and that made it harder to explain why she'd done something so careless. They didn't hate her. They still hugged her during drop-offs and told her about their days over the phone. I never told them not to. That was their relationship to figure out, not mine. There were moments when I wondered if I had done the right thing. Not because I missed her, but because I hated how familiar everything still looked. I'd sit at the kitchen table and drink my coffee in the morning, and it was the same cup, the same view out the window, the same plate stacked in the sink because I still hadn't fixed the dishwasher. The silence was different, but everything else was the same. I realized I wasn't mourning the person, just the routine, the feeling of knowing where I stood. That part had been ripped away, and what replaced it wasn't grief, just emptiness. One night, a month after the divorce was finalized, she called. It was a Thursday. I was putting laundry away upstairs, and her name lit up my phone. I stared at it for a few seconds before answering. Yeah, I'm not going to drag this out, she said. I just wanted to thank you. For what? For not ruining me. I wasn't interested in revenge. You could have done it anyway. You could have shown the videos. You could have destroyed me with one email. You didn't. I didn't do it for you. I know. I guess I just wanted you to hear me say thank you. And I'm sorry. Even if it doesn't matter now. It doesn't. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, like she was deciding whether to say something else. I miss them, she said. I miss waking up in that house. I miss how things were before I broke everything. That's what happens when you make decisions that can't be undone. I don't expect anything from you anymore. I just wanted to say it out loud. That I think about it every day. I think about it too, I said. But not the way you do. Goodbye, Steve. Goodbye, Megan. That was the last time we spoke about anything other than the kids. I didn't block her. I didn't erase her from my life. But I stopped treating her like she was part of it. She became someone I used to know. Someone I used to build plans with. Someone I used to trust. Life didn't get better overnight. I didn't suddenly become happier or more fulfilled. But over time, things did start to change. I took on more work to keep busy, but I also made space for things I had neglected. I started seeing old friends again. I cleaned out the closet and gave away the things that didn't mean anything anymore. I stopped looking at the old photos. I deleted the videos from my computer, not because I forgave her, but because I didn't want to live in that place anymore. I didn't need a reminder. The damage had already been done. Keeping it wouldn't fix anything. I started talking to someone a few months later. Nothing serious, just conversations over coffee, a couple of dinners, a slow kind of getting to know each other that felt cautious but real. I didn't tell her everything, not at first, but I was honest about where I was. I told her I'd been married. I told her I'd been hurt. I told her I wasn't looking for something to distract me, I just wanted something honest. Looking back, I don't think I'll ever fully understand why Megan did what she did. And maybe I don't need to. The truth is, people lie. They hide things. They tell themselves stories so they can sleep better at night. And sometimes, those stories explode. But what matters is what you do after. Whether you stay buried in the wreckage, or whether you dig your way out. I chose to dig. And even if I'm still not sure where the road leads, at least I know I'm the one walking it now. Alone, but not lost. Just moving forward.